In 1998, two Japanese cars were quietly doing things that shouldn't have been possible. One was a two-door sports coupe with a straight-six engine that tuners were pushing past 1,000 horsepower on completely stock internals. The other was an all-wheel drive technological monster that lapped the Nürburgring faster than a Ferrari 355. Both became the most wanted cars on the planet anyway. The 1990s Japanese domestic market produced some of the most technically advanced performance cars ever built. But nothing from that era carries the weight, the mythology, or the raw mechanical obsession of these two. The Toyota Supra MK4 and the Nissan Skyline GT-R R34. Two machines from the same country, the same decade, aimed at the same goal, built in completely opposite ways. Toyota launched the A80 Supra in 1993. It came in two flavors, a naturally aspirated 2JZ GE and the twin-turbo 2JZ GTE that became one of the most celebrated engines in automotive history. The JDM numbers from the factory were restrained by design, officially rated at 280 PS, 276 horsepower, with 451 Newton-meters of torque. Toyota, like several Japanese manufacturers at the time, had agreed to a voluntary 276 horsepower cap, a gentleman's agreement between automakers to keep factory output numbers officially restrained. Nobody was fooled. The 2JZ GTE was widely understood to be making closer to 320 horsepower at the crank in real-world testing. But the real story wasn't what it made from the factory. The real story was what it could take. The 2JZ GTE featured a closed-deck iron block, massively over-engineered for its displacement. The internals from the factory were strong enough to handle power levels Toyota never intended it to see. With a simple single-turbo conversion and basic supporting mods, 500 horsepower was a weekend project. 700 was a bolt-on build. 1,000 horsepower on the stock block became a benchmark that the tuning world used for years. In 1998, a tuned Supra recorded one of the fastest documented street-legal quarter-mile passes at the time, deep into the 7-second range. The car weighed 1,560 kilograms. It had sequential twin turbos, rear-wheel drive, and a 6-speed Getrag gearbox that became famous for surviving abuse that should have destroyed it. Nissan's Skyline GT-R R34 arrived in 1999 carrying the RB26 DETT, a 2.6-liter straight-six twin-turbo engine with individual throttle bodies, a forged bottom end, and enough mechanical aggression to make the Supra feel polite. Official output? 280 horsepower. Same gentleman's agreement. Same fiction. Actual output from a standard R34 GT-R? Closer to 330 at the crank. And again, the factory numbers were the least interesting part of the story. Nissan's Atessa ETS Pro all-wheel drive system read lateral G-forces and distributed torque between the front and rear axles in real time. The active LSD at both axles meant each wheel got exactly the traction it needed, exactly when it needed it. The Super Hikis rear-wheel steering system added another layer of chassis control that no production car of that price had any business having. 0 to 60, 4.5 seconds, nearly identical to the Supra on paper. But the R34 cornered like it was on rails, launched with the traction advantage of 4 driven wheels, and carried speed through corners in a way the rear-wheel drive Supra simply couldn't match. Strip away the stock figures and the conversation explodes. The 2JZ GTE's iron block remained the gold standard for high-horsepower builds across 2 decades. The aftermarket that grew around it was unlike anything else in the industry. Every part, every supporting system, every version of the build had been done 1,000 times. A 1,000 horsepower Supra stopped being impressive. People were chasing 1,200, 1,500. HKS built time attack Supras that pushed deep into the 7-second quarter-mile range, on a car derived from a 1993 production platform. The RB26 DETT responded differently, but just as generously. The stock turbos were a restriction from day one. Swap them out and the engine breathed. The bottom end handled 600, 700 horsepower on factory internals with good supporting work. Built motors in R34s have been running past 1,000 horsepower at the wheels, but the platform has a ceiling the 2JZ approaches more easily. The Supra's iron block is the reason the 2JZ became the benchmark. The R34's advantage was always the chassis around the engine. Two approaches to the same madness. The Supra was a drag strip legend in rear-wheel drive. The R34 was a time attack monster that just happened to also destroy drag strips. The MK4 Supra has become one of the most expensive Japanese cars on the used market. Clean manual turbo examples are trading above $200,000 in the US. A car that cost $40,000 new in 1994 is now a six-figure collector's piece. The R34 GT-R sits higher. The standard R34 GT-R V-Spec is approaching six figures even in poor condition. Nissan made approximately 11,000 R34 GT-Rs across all variants during its production run from 1999 to 2002. 3 years, 11,000 cars. The moment R34s started arriving in American ports, prices spiked immediately. The demand had been building for 2 decades. The Supra was the tuner's canvas. The R34 was the engineer's statement. One gave the world the most tunable engine ever mass-produced. The other gave the world proof that a production car could move like a racing machine. Both were capped at 280 horsepower by an agreement nobody believed. Both became legends anyway. Japan built these cars in the 1990s. Europe was doing something equally insane at the same time, and most people forget it ever happened.